Well, we've got a gale blowing across the northern half of the British Isles thanks to a squeeze in the pressure field. Further south, we're seeing a big contrast between morning and afternoon, and that is very classic for this time of the year. Thanks for clicking on to the Tuesday, the 4th of March edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Hope everybody is safe and well wherever you are, and I hope you're enjoying the content here on the channel. If you haven't already done so, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It is absolutely free content 6 days a week here on the channel. And this is the Meteoseal pressure chart at the time of recording, which is around 5 p.m. on this Tuesday. We've got quite a pinch in the pressure field, especially across more northern areas. And there's this gradient between a 970 millibar low near Iceland versus pressure close to 1025 or so millibars across the south. And it's that gradient that is generating some very strong winds indeed. It's 65 mile per hour winds at the relatively low levels in exposure across the north. We're seeing in excess of 100 miles per hour over the tops of the mountains. So it is a windy old day out there for sure. We are going to look at some of the stats with regards to the winter that came out yesterday from the Met Office in a little second or so. But the polar vortex has been pretty robust throughout the winter season. This is the temperatures at 10 HPA through really since the beginning of autumn last year, right the way through. The grade line represents the average, and you can see here that generally this squiggly black dark line here is the actual temperature at the 10 millibar level over the North Pole, and you can see here that it is generally been below the average line throughout much of the winter season. But you notice a bit of a change taking place now as we move into the month of March, the beginning of spring. It looks as if this could be the first final stratospheric warming to occur so early in the season since 2016. And if you look at the 30 millibar level, we've got an even greater contrast here in terms of how cold it's been at the 30 millibar level over the pole during particularly January and February. Obviously, it has been stretched somewhat, and it's been favouring cold into North America as opposed to Western Europe. But it's been interesting to see how the polar vortex has generally been pretty strong throughout the course of the season. Perhaps the strengthening of La Nina coupled with a solar maximum and a west QBO has perhaps allowed this polar vortex to become relatively strong through the course of the season. But change is afoot, and if you look at the GFS extended here, you can see this is the 50 millibar level, so this is the lower stratosphere. And you can see here that as we play through this loop, obviously the purpley colours represent, the Barney colours represent the cold, the core of cold in the pole, and the red and the whites represent above average temperatures at the pole. And we'll play through the loop. You can see here the very sharp burst of warming take place. And then as we continue to play through the loop towards the middle portions of the month, so Wednesday the 12th of March, there appears to be this burst of warming coming out of Eastern Asia across the top into North America, but it's splitting the vortex at 50 millibars. One piece, the mother piece, is actually going into Europe and also Western Asia, and the other piece is going into North America here. So that is reasonably significant. And what is going to be interesting to see is, do we see a response within the atmosphere itself? So obviously, it's one thing being a response at 10 millibars or 50 millibars, but do we see this energy propagate down into the troposphere and affect the 500 millibar pattern? And by doing so, I would expect to see the building of heights up into the Arctic region. That then slows down the west to east movement of the flow within the middle latitudes, and also creates a greater contrast in terms of extremes. Cold and warm extremes can occur. And continue to play through this loop, you can see here that the warmth basically takes over the Arctic and the North Pole region here, and it doesn't look as if we're going to see any recovery in the PV as we progress through the rest of March and into April. So we basically are seeing the demise of the polar vortex, but because it's 4 to 5, 6 weeks earlier than what you would typically see, it's going to be interesting to see what response this has on the lower portions of the atmosphere. Certainly, if you look at the ECMWF, the North Atlantic Oscillation is projected to go negative, as can be seen here. The Arctic Oscillation is also expected to go negative, and that would make sense given what's taking place above. Looking at other things then, and you can see that we have got this is the current pressure chart, and obviously we've got the strong winds. If we look at the wind speeds in kilometers per hour, so we are seeing some very gusty conditions across the north, less so across the south, and this here where we're seeing the big contrast between daybreak and sunset. Temperatures still very mild in those westerly winds across the north of the UK. This was temperatures this morning, by the way, to start the day. We had another -5 at Benson, Oxfordshire. That, I believe, is the fourth morning in a row to drop below -5. But into the afternoon, 12 to 14 Celsius is quite widespread. With clear skies and light winds at this time of the year, you see the radiational cooling taking place during the overnight period. Temperatures drop well below the freezing mark. You can see that has been the case. Really south of the Midlands, we've seen temperatures at or below freezing, even around the Greater London area. And that's what I made mention of, obviously, with the notably cold start of the month of March. Not so much cold in the afternoons, it has to be said, but it's the fact that we're seeing these cold starts and then a sharp recovery as we progress through the course of the daytime. Thanks to that increase in strength of the sun, we're seeing the nights growing somewhat shorter in terms of daylight, or darkness, should I say, and we're seeing these big swings, and that's known as a diurnal temperature change over the course of a 12-hour period. Less so across the north due to plenty of mixing cloud cover and even some outbreaks of rain across the far northwest. Let's have a quick look then at the latest temperature anomalies over the next 5 days according to the GFS ensemble. Anyway, we'll get to the correct chart, and this is the upcoming 5 days, the day 3 through 7, still milder than average, so this is the period between the 6th and the 11th of March. We'll go to the slightly older run, and we can look at the longer term and see if the models are sniffing anything colder as we progress towards the middle portions of the month. And right enough, they are starting to show that. This is the day 10 through 15, and then we continue to play through. Again, it starts to warm up once again, but we are seeing a drop in temperature towards the middle portions of the month, possibly in response to the AO and the NAO expected to go back into negative territory. Another factor to consider is the Mann-Julian oscillation, and you can see here that it is rotating through phases 2 and 3, which is the Indian Ocean, and then there is hints, at least anyway, that the model is trying to take it back towards phases 7 and 8, which is the West and Central Pacific. We'll keep an eye on that going forward, but it's going to be interesting to see. This middle to second half of March is a period that I'm watching for increased blocking up into the Arctic region and the ridge trough sequence underneath. Where you find yourself is going to be important. You could be underneath the ridge, which is not particularly cold, or you could be stuck under the trough, which delivers some late season chill, early spring chill. And as I've already said, you quite often can find that early tastes of spring can be followed by a late blast of wintry weather, and that is something that is very much in the table. Looking at the ECM extended then, this is the upcoming 7 days in terms of the 500 millibar pattern. We've got a trough into the central and eastern United States and Canada. We're seeing cold conditions here. We've seen a whole mixture of weather at the moment. We're seeing strong areas of low pressure crossing the country, delivering severe weather, tornadoes. This is a time of the year that you need to really watch out now for severe weather outbreaks and tornado outbreaks as well. So quite a problematic pattern across much of the lower 48 of North America at this moment in time. But I want to draw your attention to the fact that we've got this strong ridge of high pressure over much of the continent, including the UK and Ireland. We've got an area of low pressure centred just to the west of Portugal here at the moment. We do have some positive heights over the next 7 days across the top. But if you notice here, as we skip through to the 7 to 14 day period, we start to see a ridge developing over Greenland. not so much over the Arctic, but over Greenland itself. And we are going to start to see a more active jet, I think, moving out of North America as a consequence of that increased gradient over the eastern side of North America. We then see a stronger jet, and that is going to start to progress eastwards, but it's going to start to get forced further southwards to the south of the UK, into France and Iberia, due to that block developing up over Greenland and Iceland. So that's something we need to watch quite carefully. If we look at the view equatorially, you can see here the trough reasonably flat and zonal, but because of the pressure building up into Iceland and Greenland, we're then forcing the storm track a little bit further south. In terms of temperature anomalies over the next 7 days, this is how the ECMWF is shown anyway. So central and eastern United States, warmer than average west, cold than average Canada, colder in the west, warmer in the east. Look at how mild compared to average across Greenland, the Baffin Straits, northern Canada, in association with that ridge developing. But looking at Europe specifically, you can see here that we've got the average to slightly below average conditions in the day 7 through 14. Continue to play through. Is it indicating anything significant? No, it isn't at this moment in time. But again, we'll keep an eye on this going forward. In terms of the next several days, not a huge amount of change to speak about. If we look at the latest of the GFS model, this is how things are looking over the next several days. So we've got this deep area of low pressure at 956 millibars, not too shabby, between Iceland and Greenland. We've got this associated frontal system that is now bringing wind and rain across the far northwest mainland into the Outer Hebrides over the course of today. And again, we've got this gradient between the low pressure up towards Greenland and Iceland, high pressure at 1025 millibars over the southern UK, and you can see the isobars pinching together. And we're pulling air in from a reasonably mild source all the way out to the subtropical Atlantic, getting propelled rapidly eastwards thanks to that gradient between the high and the low. Continue to play through then, you can see that we remain fairly stable in terms of the overall setup, not a great deal of change taking place. Under the clear skies, lighter winds, we're still seeing this fluctuation between frost by night, mild by afternoon, and plenty of sunshine, less so in the way of sunshine the further north you go, as well as the increase in wind. Then we've got an area of low pressure. Again, the modelling indicating this kind of block taking place. It forces a split, one piece going north, one piece going south. Very messy conditions down across Iberia and down towards northwestern Africa, the Canary Islands, etc., etc. Continue to play through then, and you can see again pressure start to build up towards Iceland and Greenland, replacing those sub 960 millibar lows with a strong ridge of high pressure. So that is creating a frictional effect on the lower portions of the stratosphere. And speaking of the lower stratosphere, before I forget, this is how the modelling is looking. So the lowest portion of the stratosphere is quite important to look at, because that can sometimes reflect what's going on underneath. So this is the initial 50 millibar level. You can see here that we've got the low pressure, the coldest conditions across the north of Europe. We've got very mild conditions across the top of North America at the 50 millibar level. But this is how things are looking as we skip out to 10 days from now. And we've got that strong warming now starting to show up over the top of the Arctic North America. And we've got this negative here over the UK and Ireland. That, to me, would indicate the potential of a block over the top of Greenland. And we've got this negative underneath over western areas of Europe here. And this could signal colder conditions down the road, late March, even into the first half of April, if this all plays out the way I think it may. So again, like I say, we've got this rather stagnant, stable setup at the moment here. We'll see change take place towards the end of the week, and the question mark is going to be what kind of cold air we can get coming down from the north. Let's finally close by looking at the article released by the Met Office. 2 named storms and a typical mix of winter weather. Winter 2024-25 statistics. So very briefly, winter 2025 24-25, closed out on a bright and sunny note for most. Although the same cannot be said for the majority of the season, provisional Met Office stats show that this winter saw below average rainfall and below average sunshine and above average temperatures. Remember what the forecast said. By no means was it a perfect winter forecast, but nevertheless, I said a mixture and the chance of slightly drier but also slightly warmer than average overall, which then constitutes that 7.5 out of 10 in terms of scoring. So below average rainfall, especially across Northern Ireland. You can see here, this is the entire winter season, so the 1st of December through 20th of February. You can see here a mixture of wetter than average versus drier than average, but drier than average has actually won out in terms of the overall UK itself. In terms of temperature anomalies, especially across more northern areas of the UK, it was firmly warmer than average, or milder than average, to say. And in terms of sunshine, with the exceptions of a sunny winter across the Outer Hebrides, Skye and Northern Highland, you can see here that it has been a largely dull winter overall, with a mixture of dull versus sunny. Even southwestern Scotland has been sunnier than average, most of Northern Ireland sunnier than average as well, and there's been pockets of that across both England and Wales. Obviously, two notable named storms, so again, the whole winter season, only two named storms, which is quite interesting when you think about that. Dara and Éowyn was those two named storms, and these are the stats. Look at the March outlook that I released back last week. This has now got incorporated into the article, and I've updated that further as well. Very low rainfall, especially for far northern Scotland. Certainly for my own site here at Marfogan Weather HQ, it had been the driest month on record, albeit the records are only about 3 years old, or not even that. But with only 22 millimetres of rainfall in the month of February, that has been the least I've recorded in any month at all. So a particularly dry February for here in this part of Ross-shire, which is quite interesting. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Back again tomorrow with more. Bye for now.